Well, during the course of yesterday's episode of Rookie to Rory, managed to make our way up to top spot here in this Bundesliga with Jahn Regensburg coming up today. We've got two more big games, Eintracht Braunschweig away, bit of a bogey team, and then Nürnberg, who previously were on top and looking quite good before what looks like a pretty kind run home, so fingers crossed if we can hold that top spot, we should get automatically promoted to the Bundesliga for next season. Hello everyone and welcome to episode number 51 of Rookie to Royalty here on Shaun Does FM with Jahn Regensburg. I hope you're doing well and come up today to big away games here in the late stages of these Bundesliga season. First up, bit of a bogey team in Eintracht Braunschweig away. As you can see, those previous meetings, not too good for us to be fair since we've got here, I think that's only one loss, but still, that could be tricky. Before then, we take on Heidenheim at home. They've dropped down the table, so fingers crossed I can beat those guys off camera. And then we take on Nürnberg, who were sitting top for a long time up until the end of yesterday's episode. But if you missed that one, I'll leave a link to it over in the top right corner. We took on Mainz, picked up a draw there, and bounced back with wins over Fortuna Düsseldorf as well as Wiesbaden, albeit left it quite close there in that Wiesbaden game. We've played one game off camera since then. Actually, we have dropped points this one. Quite disappointing, albeit it was against the pre-season favourites in Werder Bremen, who of course these days have a new manager for the second half of the season. Ruslan played a big hand in this game. Unfortunately, we went down early thanks to a shot in the goal. Then though, Ruslan, in the space of a couple of minutes, with two headers, which he put away. So we were 2-1 lead there at half-time, and I thought we were looking quite good to try and make it 3-1 there in the early stages of the second half. But then Ruslan pushed Reeks Oxford in the back, and it was a bit of a dumb decision as well, because it was just on the byline on the far post around the edge of the inner box as the ball was about to go out. No real goal-scoring threat, but for some reason Ruslan did clearly push him in the back, and they tucked away the penalty there through Sekumara. So unfortunately, some drop points there due to Ruslan, but to be fair, he scored the double. Can't complain too much. Was thinking about taking him off at halftime too, but obviously, seeing a hat-trick, that didn't seem like the smartest idea, especially because he is now suspended for this first game of today's episode. So fingers crossed that won't prove too costly, and thankfully it wasn't too costly in the automatic promotion race, because Nürnberg, if we go and have a look at the table, they're still 2 points behind us. Let's go back here and see what did happen on that previous match day. They took on Dynamo Dresden away from home, and yet another defeat. They got beaten there 2-0 by Dresden, and if we can find Mainz, they bounce back to winning form with a 2-1 result over Wiesbaden. So it does mean our gap on top of the table is still 2 points, but Mainz have closed that gap to 4, so it does mean we could actually slip down into that third spot if results don't go away during the course of today's episode. But fair to say Nürnberg, their form all of a sudden is starting to tail off just a little bit. You'll see it there. 2 losses in their last 3 games after they went through their first 22 without suffering a single defeat. So they're definitely hitting some poor form at the wrong time in the season. Fingers crossed we can make the most of that second up in today's episode. But before then, we've got this Eintracht Braunschweig team who have been pretty tricky for us so far in this save. To be fair, their recent form is pretty bad as well, though. Did just pick up a win 3-1 over Gluffer Firth, but before then, a couple of losses there to Hertha Berlin, Dynamo Dresden, and Hanover, and a draw with Kaiserslautern. So to be fair, this one does look quite winnable for us. They are down in 5th, expected to be finishing in 12th, but are a team, as you saw earlier, that we have been struggling to beat since coming here to Jahn Regensburg. And no doubt that's only getting made all the worse by the fact that, as well as Ruslan being out with that suspension, we do have some injuries. Paul Cooper, our third choice left back, is out, but thankfully Sousa has returned from the injury that has kept him out for a little while. And also, Lewis Walden, some pulled ankle ligaments. We could risk him if we really wanted to. Not too sure if it's a good idea though. So we're missing our first choice right winger and our first choice centre back for this game. So some pretty big names that we are missing for this one, but fingers crossed we can get the job done yet again. Alice actually saying for this game that we should go with a 4-4-2. Obviously, I haven't found a 4-4-2 that actually works yet, but considering that we've tried a 4-2-3-1 against these guys so far and it hasn't quite worked, did bowl it against them earlier this season, had a 2-0 lead at home, they came back and beat us 3-2. I am thinking that maybe we stick with that 4-3-3 we were using during the course of yesterday's episode, so we'll see how it goes here. Don't think it was too bad. We definitely should have beaten Mainz if not for that penalty, which yet again was given away from Ruslan, and bounced back off the back of that with some good wins against teams who were further down the table. So fingers crossed we can do that here with this 4-3-3, yet again a win here would be very useful, as would one when we take on Heidenheim, to make sure we will hold top spot going in to that big Nürnberg game. Fingers crossed we don't allow them a chance to catch us up before we take them on second up in today's episode. But in terms of changes, obviously there's a few. Carstens comes in there at right centre back for the suspended Ruslan. Also, we've got Greenwood at right wing. Ostojic comes in for our new signing, Jimenez, just in slightly better form so far. Jimenez has been a little bit average, and also Dawn at left back because Sousa is still making his way back from that injury, can't quite handle a full 90 minutes. It's not really the team that would like to put out in a tricky away game, but hopefully can do a decent job here with this 4-3-3. There are Braunschweig going with a 5-3-2, so it's a very defensive formation. Fingers crossed the 4-3-3 might just be slightly better suited to breaking it down than that 4-2-3-1, but we'll see during the course of this game. Really hopeful that we can pick up a win. Otherwise, Nürnberg, if they can return to winning form, they could go above us, and obviously also Mainz could close that gap and really make things interesting in this race for the title. We did have a 6-point gap over them at the end of yesterday's episode. That's now gone down to 4 off the back of that draw of Werder Bremen. We don't want it to go down any more, but early stages hero corner, unfortunately, can't pick out the Carstens at the near post. Ramsey squares it nicely. That was for Stewart, but he was offside, so to be fair, that was a little bit of a waste of time highlight, but early stages here, it looks like we are on the front foot well and truly now, with a throw on the side of the final third. Stollery plays that back to our new DM there, and Lopez. Ostojic there makes his way forward. That's a poor pass though across the face of goal, and Braunschweig, they can clear their lines, but thankfully Dawn can get us back on the ball here. Stollery will whip that one into the mixer. It takes a big deflection off Paul Schimmel and will open the scoring thanks to an own goal. So it's very SKC-like versus LA Galaxy here in this one. Let's see if we can hold on without a shot on target in this game. But we've taken the lead here, just shy of the 10-minute mark, and so far we are looking like we're on the front foot. So fingers crossed here we can find a way to pick up this win. And against the team that we have struggled against, a good start there. We get helped out by Schimmel. No shots on target. We've actually had shots. Definitely can't do what SKC did a couple of weeks ago now to the LA Galaxy, who are utter trash this season in the MLS. Those rules are screwing those guys over well and truly. But now it's Braunschweig here who are on the attack. They go back there to Ehlers, and now Philippe tracking back, plays it back there to another one of their centre-backs, obviously going with a very defensive formation. Vidic will play that one forward there to Philippe, who somehow gets him behind and puts that one away. And he stayed onside. Not too sure what's happening there. Maybe Carstens coming in for Ruslan, just a bit out of line because that looked far too simple. Vidic gets this ball here, and Carstens gets turned inside out, just way too slow to react, doesn't pick up his man. He goes in behind and can beat Lukic there inside of that right hand upright. So unfortunately off the back of a quite good start, we can see there at the 20-minute mark, and it's 1-1. Also, Eintracht Braunschweig continue to be a little bit of a thorn in our side in this save, but fingers crossed that maybe we can now make it 2-1. Back on the ball a few minutes later from this free kick. Dawn plays that one back there to Hubner, and now goes across to Carstens. Not too good there in that first goal. He's in the last year of his contract, so maybe if he doesn't perform today, we might let that expire. Definitely Ruslan and Hubner do look like quite good long-term options. Now Philippe, though, again, does get in behind and somehow can pretty much score the exact same goal and make it 2-1. So Carstens not having too much fun there on that right-hand side of our defence. It's Yilmaz here on the ball. Vidic again, and again just the pace there of Philippe is too much for Carstens. Lopez maybe could be doing better as well, but to be fair, it should be Carstens who is covering Philippe in these situations, and he's been pretty poor. Somehow Hubner on a worse rating than Carstens, which doesn't make too much sense because that's the other side of the field. But Philippe looking quite dangerous makes it 2-1 for Braunschweig. So unfortunately, this 4-3-3 isn't quite working, albeit not too sure if it's the tactic or just a slow aging centre-back we do have there. And Carstens 2 minutes here of extra time. Unfortunately, don't get a chance to try and equalise there before we go into the sheds. And there might be some changes. We'll switch here to the 4-2-3-1. To be fair of late, we are winning with the 4-2-3-1, dropping points occasionally with the 4-3-3. So maybe the 4-2-3-1 is what we should be sticking with. We'll also make some subs. Both those players on the right-hand side defence not doing too well. So Jimenez and Pavasic, they can come on. Also Meyer at right wing for a struggling Greenwood, and Veloso up top because Leighton Stewart is going pretty poorly on a 6.4. So quite a few changes there at half time. We don't now have an option to replace Stollery if he goes down to a 6.4, but now a chance here early in the second half, and Aaron Ramsey will pick out Pavicic. That's a role that usually Ruslan's in. Thankfully, Pavicic comes off the bench there and replaces Carstens, makes an immediate impact, and makes it 2-all. So hopefully switching to the 4-2-3-1 and also bring on some players for some that were really struggling, in particular Carstens. Let's hope no more goals there down that right-hand side of our defence, but that change does make it 2-all. And now we've got a throw in here inside the opposition half. Stollery plays that back to Dawn Hubner, up to Carlos Manrique. That ball not quite on the money. They get a foot in and they get a chance here to make their way out from that. They pump that one deep. Hubner can win it though. Manrique can try and get us going for, but that passes poor Yilmaz, can cut it out. And yet again, a chance here for Braunschweig to clear their lines deep. Dawn wins that one though in the air, and Stollery can start to make his way forward, just plays it infield before it goes back there to Manrique. Quite fortunate to keep hold of the ball, but then nice one over the top there for Stollery, who'll pull it across for Ramsey, who takes on the shot, and that is a wonderful save from the Braunschweig goalkeeper. And all of a sudden, they are on the attack in this highlight. It will continue. Ramos will get that ball back there down the right-hand side. That cross does take a deflection off of Hubner, and it does continue this highlight. Philippe, who's on that hat-trick, will take it, goes near post, but thankfully just do enough there to deal with the danger, and Philippe does stay offsides. Interesting highlight there, looked like where he could have scored it down the other end. Big save from their goalkeeper, and then we're forced into giving up a corner. Thankfully, nothing too threatening off the back of that though, but do feel like we're looking slightly better here with our 4-2-3-1. But for our final sub, with 25 minutes left, Lino Sousa could be quite a big difference maker at left back. Fingers crossed he can be the chance magnet that we know he can be, and he might be a difference maker late on in this game as Lopez picks up a yellow card. But really, forwarding midfielder can't get them to ease off tackles, so fingers crossed that won't hurt us late on in this game. No red cards or anything like that. Now, late free kick, there's a man here who looks quite open on our left-hand side, and Stollery, fingers crossed here that Manrique might actually pick him out here from this free kick. It does look a little bit too long to be going for goal. He does go quite close. That one bumps the woodwork, but unfortunately, he probably should have gone left there. Might have got a better chance, so it's still 2-all. And now we're down the other end here for a free kick to Braunschweig. That one goes just over the bar, and while we're here, we'll just pause the game and go to a slightly higher tempo and try and pick up all 3 points from this one. Also, Stollery at left wing. Let's chuck him onto attack. And Lopez, instead of being defensive there as their ball winner, he can go on to support. So fingers crossed these changes might get us on the front foot here a little bit more, because so far our shots actually not nearly as good as Eintracht Braunschweig, but the XG has been quite high. So it would be nice maybe late to get a few more off here in this game with 5 minutes to go. Let's go wider. Let's be more expressive. And also, maybe we should just up our lines here late on, just see if that might make a difference. Put them under a bit more pressure there as they try and make their way out from the back. Let's see if that might do something. Also, might be time for us here to go more attacking as we make our way into 5 minutes of added time yet again. We drop points here to a handy Eintracht Braunschweig team away from home. It's not an awful result, but that one is a little bit annoying. We got off to a good start there with that own goal, but then Carstens, bit of a shocking few minutes there, and Felipe picked up a double. Thankfully, the player who came on for him, and Pavicic off the bench, scored one early from a set piece in the second half. I think stats-wise, can't argue too much with a 2-all draw, but drop points for us now in 2 straight games, which certainly is a bit concerning, because Heidenheim, while back at home, they won't be any pushovers. And then, of course, that big Nürnberg game. So all of a sudden, there's a chance that things could get very tight at the top of the table when we come back for that second game in today's episode. We're 3 points clear, but Nürnberg and Mainz do now have a game in hand. And here are the highlights from this Heidenheim game, which was actually before a winter break, and only the 1 goal. Leighton Stewart actually just does enough there to get that one on target with some help from the woodwork on the hour mark, and thankfully that was the difference maker. Stats wise, you can see definitely a game that we should have been winning. Thankfully, just needed that one chance, and we did take it. So we pick up the 3 much needed points before an international break, which we'll get to shortly, because unfortunately both our regular centre backs do play a little bit of international football, so not the strongest team we've got available off the back of that break. But it does mean that we're still 2 points clear, because Nürnberg, they did drop points. We'll just check exactly when it was. Not too sure if it was the match day where we dropped points in our game. You can see Mainz there with a 2-0 win over Werder Bremen, and Nürnberg were back in winning form. So it means the same time that we were drawing there with Eintracht Braunschweig, they dropped points in that, was against Hanover. So that's the reason that we're still 2 points clear of those guys. But unfortunately, Mainz, they beat Fortuna Düsseldorf. So all of a sudden, they're up in second. It's only a 2-point gap for us on top of the table. So this does make the second game in today's episode quite big. If we can beat Nürnberg while they're struggling just a little bit, that would be quite nice. Extend that gap back out to something like 5 points on top of the table. And in the last couple of games, if we check out their fixtures, Mainz do host Nürnberg in a couple of match weeks' time. So a chance for us there to hopefully, if we're still on top, extend the gap on at least one of those teams. Fingers crossed the team who's lower down might actually lose that one. And that could certainly help us make sure that we get promoted up to the Bundesliga for next season. But Nürnberg are going to be quite tough away from home, but their form of late, it is a little bit more stuttery than it was for a large portion. They've only lost 2 games so far, and they've come in amongst their last 5 games. So fingers crossed they might be rusty in terms of both recent form and off the back of the international breaker. And it's actually suggested for this game that we go again with a 4-3-3. I'm going to ignore them though, because if we look at our previous meetings, we've done quite well against Nürnberg so far in the save. And every time it has been with a 4-2-3-1. So I'm not too sure why he wants to change it all of a sudden for this game, especially off the back of a couple of draws now with that system that we have picked up. So we're going to go here with our 4-2-3-1, and fingers crossed it does work. A little bit different to what we used there in that 2-1-1, because these days those guys are a little bit further forward. But so far this is a team that we haven't lost to since we've come here. So fingers crossed that continues in this one. And going over to our medical centre, there's no injuries, which is quite nice. Walden's back, as well as Paul Cooper, albeit these days not really needed, with Lino Sousa coming back from his injury. But that international break does mean we've got some players on heavy workloads. Unfortunately, both our regular first choice centre backs, Hübner is not too bad. I think we can risk him with a below average injury susceptibility, but Ruslan will drop to the bench. Definitely don't want him getting injured even in a game this big. So we're going to use him off the bench. Pavicic will start there in his place. We'll drop Carstens completely off the back of that poor display in that first game you did see in today's episode. And Greenwood also drops out with the return of Lewis Walden. So a couple of big names back for us, albeit one is only through the bench. And also we've got Jimenez back in there, Ostojic a bit there in that first game of today's episode. And so it looks like a much stronger team here for this Nürnberg clash. Away from home, it's tricky, but fingers crossed we can at the very least pick up a draw from this game. To be fair, Mainz, that's not too easy for them either. They've got Eintracht Braunschweig away from home, so this could be a pretty big day in terms of the race for the top 3 and seeing which 2 teams get that automatic promotion up to the Bundesliga. I'd still think that with a 14-point gap for those other 2 teams and 16 for us with 7 games left this season, should be okay to at least be in the promotion relegation game. But fingers crossed we can pick up a decent result here and find a way to make sure we go through as one of those top 2 teams. Just that one change there, Pavicic coming in for Ruslan, who drops down to the bench. Blooming international duty, not really the time of year I wanted. That our former, the Beefy, had just been stuttering a little bit, but so Nürnberg. Didn't think it would have been a bad time to take them on before that break. Unfortunately, we've now got one, and we are missing our first choice centre back, Ruslan. Really good for us so far this season, albeit last couple of games he has done a couple of silly things, so maybe not the worst idea to drop him for this one off the back of that suspension he did have before that Heidenheim game, where thankfully he put in a pretty solid shift. But apart from that, it's our first choice lineup we do have for this game. Just need a draw to hold top spot, to be fair, because goal differential should mean that Mainz can't catch us, but a win would be absolutely massive. But it could mean a pretty interesting run home we might have here in this Bundesliga season, albeit our run home does look pretty kind. Darmstadt and Hertha Berlin away. Hertha Berlin, just like Eintracht Braunschweig, have been a little bit of a bogey team, but apart from that, we've got some bottom half teams at home. So I'd like to think we can then start to rack up the wins and pick up quite a few points, hopefully make sure that we'll go up automatically, especially with that match where Nürnberg do have to travel to Mainz. But unfortunately, they're on the front foot here early. Put that one far post. Lukic, very unconvincing, but thankfully it comes off the woodwork and we can just clear that one away. So early stages here, Nürnberg are on the attack. We encourage We'll see what happens from this highlight, because before that goes through, it is Nürnberg here who are on the ball. Thankfully, Jahn comes out nicely and wins that ball for us. Lopez picks out Jimenez there in a ton of space. Nice through ball there, and Leighton Stewart can chip that one over Martinelli. I think he stayed on side, and we might have taken a 1-0 lead. Indeed we do. So a big goal there from Leighton Stewart, yet again, much like in the Heidenheim game before the international break. Lopez here picks out Jimenez in a ton of space. It looks like Ramsey is going for that ball. Thankfully, Stewart just stays on side and can put that one away in the top left corner. We're going to have to wait here and see this offside check. It might not be the worst idea. Just cancel that shout, because encouraging doesn't tend to go too well off the back of taking a lead. Instead, we might praise. And indeed, now it's gone through. That does make most of the attackers happy. Our defense is a little bit confused as to why we're praising, because they did nothing in that highlight. To be fair, Dawn actually was quite useful with the ball he did win in the air. But we do take a 1-0 lead with our only attack so far of this game. So it's fair to say the 4-2-3-1, not exactly seeing the world on fire, but we do have the lead, which is quite nice. But now Nati with a free kick in a dangerous spot. Goes looking for the top left corner, but thankfully Lukic comes up there with a save. Unfortunately, Mainz, they are beating Eintracht Braunschweig, but if we can win this game, it won't make too much difference. Thankfully, Lukic there can claim that ball going for the far post, and that highlight does come to an end. But Nürnberg, apart from that one goal and that one attack which we saw, which thankfully we scored from, they are all over us. But now Stollery there with a good interception. We get back on the attack. Ramsey lets that ball run through nicely to Stewart, who misses the target, but was offside anyway. So to be fair, that one wouldn't count. We'll still praise, because we're winning. But stats-wise, it's not exactly convincing. But sometimes, got to let FM do what it does, and we've got a 1-0 lead. I think we'll take that, especially in a game this big. Looking at ratings out there, most guys are doing quite well. Justin Hudner on a 6.9, I think it is. Indeed, that's the case. We might have to take him off at some stage here during the course of the second half. Ruslan will have to come on for him. So fingers crossed, despite the fact he's going to be very injury prone when he comes on. He won't get injured. Hopefully, we've managed our centre backs quite well here for this big game. Early chance here from a corner in the second half. And Stollery will try to curve that one top right corner. It goes very close, but comes off the woodwork. So unfortunately, it would have been a pretty lucky goal with the stats from this game if we made it 2-0. Doesn't quite work out. Now Dawn picks up a yellow card. Sousa can come on for him. And Jimenez must have also sneakily picked one up there, so Ostojic can come on as well. So a couple of changes there at wing-back. Sousa hopefully coming on here might be a difference maker, unlike what happened in that previous game we had against Eintracht Braunschweig. Of course, he's been a big chance magnet for us so far this season, and we are struggling to create chances a little bit in this game. Nürnberg are on the front foot, but to be fair, they haven't been up to too much here in the second half. But as I say that, they do get on the attack. Thankfully, Hubner just gets in the way of that one, get a chance to clear our lines, but Nati gets them back here on the ball, and Motta makes his way forward. Nati again plays that one for Justvan, who will put that one away, and unfortunately, it might be all square here with 20 minutes left, albeit there will be, it looks like, an offside check through VAR. The players aren't celebrating. Thankfully, Justvan was just offside, moved the van too early there in that highlight, and we'll check it here. It's very, very close as Eintracht Braunschweig also equalise against Mainz. All of a sudden, everything coming out Millhouse for us here in this one. That would be quite good if both Mainz as well as Nürnberg can drop points. And obviously a win is quite big here. Now we'll take off Walden down to Red Heart. Veloso might be the most natural replacement that we do have. And also, while we're here, let's chuck on the Kamara in place of Ramsey. And that last sub, as we mentioned, we probably have to do Ruslan coming on here for Hubner on the Red Heart off the back of international duty, just seeing if him or Pavasic might be better suited to that defend role. Where I do think you need a bit more pace. It looks like Ruslan is indeed a bit quicker, so he can go there to his usual right-hand side as we continue to just do enough here to hold on to our 1-0 lead. We got one more shot there. Nothing too special, and now thrown inside the final third. They try and curve that one top right corner, I think, through Motta. It comes off the woodwork, so quite similar to the story chance from earlier in this half. Thankfully, the woodwork has been quite busy in this game of 10 minutes to go. It's time for us here to start time wasting ever so slightly. It's not been vintage at all from us, but we hold a 1-0 lead at this time of the season. That's the most important thing. About to make our way to the final 5 minutes. Was about to just start to do some more time wasting. but there is a highlight, a frame for us inside of the final third. Ostiach does take his time, plays in there to Veloso, who cuts inside, takes on a shot, takes a deflection, and Stollery can put that one away, but the assistant referee has put their flag up, so I dare say this one might get ruled out. Not too sure if it should actually be offside with that big deflection. It did take, while we're here though, before the replay, let's start time waste fully with only 5 minutes left. Fullbacks on support and also lower tempo as well as some more time wasting. Let's see though how close this was to being a second goal for us, which would have wrapped this game up. Veloso does take on the shot indeed. Offside. Did look like though initially it took deflection off a Nürnberg player, but maybe it was one of our own there in Leighton Stewart. That goal does get ruled out, but now we make our way into 5 minutes of added time. Again, Lopez picks up a yellow card as that ball wing midfielder, but thankfully the added time was quite quick, quite fortunate with the stats from that game. Definitely a team who were not on the front foot, but the 4-2-3-1 does quite a good job defensively. We keep a clean sheet, so thankfully we've gone back there to the 4-2-3-1 in a big game and just turned around a little patch there we had of a couple of draws and some big ones, and a big result too. We're off the back of the winter break with Ryzen having to come off the bench. We pick up 3 points there. Fingers crossed that Eintracht Braunschweig did hold on and take something off of Mainz, because if they did, that does mean we will now have a 3-point gap on top of the table and definitely 5 points clear of Nürnberg, which we are. But unfortunately, Mainz did pick up a late winner there in the 87th minute, so it does mean that they're still only 2 points behind us. They're now gone quite clear of Nürnberg in that second spot, but thankfully we've picked up a win. And with our run home, hopefully it's big enough to make sure we'll get automatic promotion up to the Bundesliga. So a huge win for us there, second up in today's episode off back of the international break, a 1-0 there at Nürnberg, going 5 points clear of those guys in the promotion relegation game slot, and still 2 points clear of Mainz, who have closed that gap off the back of yesterday's episode, but thankfully we do still have a bit of an advantage over them. Maybe now we actually want Mainz to pick up the win when they take on Nürnberg at home in a couple of games time. Before then, we'll just see who they've got. Nürnberg have got Paderborn away. They should probably win that despite their average recent form. Paderborn all the way down in 17th. Mainz, Heidenheim, that's not that easy while we take on Ingolstadt in the derby. We bet Ingolstadt 7-1 away from home earlier this season, so surely that's a bank of 3 points there on that match day before we take on Darmstadt, which could be tricky away from home, but that's quite a big match week because Nürnberg, they do host Mainz, but maybe now we actually want Mainz to win that game to put Nürnberg in the mud a little bit and make sure they'll be the team in that promotion relegation game. But that will do it for today's episode. Thankfully, we're still on top of this Bundesliga, and given our run home, I'd like to think now that maybe that should be enough for us to make sure we hold on to one of those top 2 spots, gain automatic promotion up to the Bundesliga for next season. But if you enjoyed that one, then do remember to go down below, leave a thumbs up on the video, and if you haven't done so already and are enjoying the series here on the channel, also make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn that notification bell on as well. Now, considering our run home does look very kind, Ingolstadt are rubbish. We've got them at home. Darmstadt, as I said, they could be tricky, as might be Hertha Berlin away from home. But also, bottom of the league at home, Kaiserslautern at home, and Dynamo Dresden on the final day of the season. I think we'll come back when we get the chance to gain that automatic promotion. And fingers crossed we can wrap up this season by the end of tomorrow's episode to wrap up this week. But of course, if we slide down to third, I dare say that's the worst we'll do. We'll play the playoff game at the start of next week, but I'm quite hopeful now that we should be going up automatically as long as we bank these results like we should in our run home. These last 6 games do look pretty kind compared to what Mainz and Nürnberg have, obviously, with those 2 teams having to take each other on. So fingers crossed we'll come back tomorrow for a little bit of a promotion party and also hopefully can go up as these Bundesliga champions. So until then, thank you very much for watching. Keep on keeping on, and I'll see you then. Cheers.